This evening, we have a very gracious volunteer willing to provide us his experience. We have Andrej Djordjevitch here to allow us to step more into understanding levels of consciousness within the healing session. For those of you who may not be familiar with Andre, he is a tutor with the Arthur Findlay College, as well as a diploma holder of the Spiritualist National Union. And this evening, we are very grateful to receive all of this, I'm sure, humor and experience, as well as philosophy. So I'm looking forward to what this brings towards us. Andre, thank you very much for being here, and the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Daniel. So humor, philosophy, and my experience, and also altered states, and a bit of altered consciousness. Okay, so we've got a busy time ahead of us. So I'm really looking forward to sharing my experiences with you, because I think the best way for anybody to learn is by their own experience. Now, I know you have to have initially some guidelines on what to do and what not to do. But if you really think about it, guidelines are important, but really you are taking on somebody else's thoughts, somebody else's reality, which may be not your reality. So I've learned to have an experience on my journey. And in that experience, things that make sense and work for me, I take on board. Things that don't make sense and don't work for me, I put to one side. And I've learned something very, very crucial in my journey. And that is that we are all individuals. So we all have a slightly different perception of the world. We all have a different connection to the intelligence that we are part of. So what we have, how many here? 68 people. So really we have 68 individual perceptions and 68 individual ways of interacting with the intelligence that we are part of. And that's what I've learned, that I would never ever say to anyone, this is how you must do it. This is how you must work. I would never say that. As long as you work to any rules or regulations to any organization you belong to, and as long as you show respect to everybody concerned, then I really feel everybody should express their own individuality. And it's taking me, my journey from becoming a trainee healer on day one with the church I was in, to becoming a trance medium, it's taken me 25 years. And I've had so many different experiences. And on my journey, I've had to undo a lot of my preconceived ideas and thoughts. Not that the preconceived ideas and thoughts were wrong on the person that was teaching me them, but they were wrong for me. It didn't work for me. And I'll say the same to you. Sometimes you will think that you have to work in a certain way. You have to connect in a certain way. And if that way is not your way, you automatically, and it's part of the human condition, if that's not your way of working, you think you're doing it wrong. And you're not. It's just the way that you interact and the way that you work is slightly different. perception is really, really important, because we all perceive things in different ways. And I'll talk about perception a bit later. But part of everybody's development, let's assume that everybody is moving forward, is progressing, is developing themselves as a human. Some of you will be developing yourselves in other areas, in your psychic senses. Let's look at your development. And this, again, this applies to everything in life. Certainly applies to healing, mediumship. And I look at everyone's development, there are two goals: primary goal and secondary goal. The primary goal really is the be-all and end-all. Without the primary goal, you can't even think of the secondary goal. The primary goal of everybody developing mediumship or healing or trance or anything is to become as close as you can to the intelligence of the universe. That's your primary goal. Now, I will slightly divert slightly away, because I need to tell you about the way I talk about things. I would call the energy the intelligence that we are part of, the intelligence of the universe. Depending on your perception, you call it what you want. Some will call it the spirit world, some will call it the angelic realms, some will call it the God force. Okay, so terminology is just a way of people expressing the same thing. Okay, so your primary goal is becoming as near as at one with that supreme intelligence. Now that should be 80% of your development. Everything should be focused on achieving that, or trying to get as close as you can to achieving that. Your secondary goal, and to me, in a way, it's irrelevant to the secondary goal, but your secondary goal is how you manifest that energy, okay? So you spent the bulk of your development creating this stronger bond, this link, this oneness with the spirit world, with the healing energy, with the energy of the universe. Now, how do you express it? That's your secondary goal. Nowhere near as important as your primary goal, yet it is a goal. You have to learn to express it. And you can express it through spiritual healing, trance speaking, trance evidential mediumship, evidential demonstrations, and so on and so on and so on. Reiki, you name it. The list is endless. But they are only tools of expressing your primary goal. So I say to people, when they've developed that link with the spirit world or with that intelligence, and they say to me, Andrej, what should I do with it? I say to them, what do you want to do with it? You've done the hard work. And now, what do you want to do with it? And if you want to be an evidential medium, then you're going to have to learn how to demonstrate that link, that knowledge that you've got. You will need presentation skills. If you are going down the healing path, you're going to look at the ways of how you can express that healing in a passive way. And if you go down the trance path, which is an extension of basically healing as far as I'm concerned, or an extension of, it's not an extension, the trance path to me is a stronger link to the intelligence. And this is what I'm going to be focusing very much with you today. So the secondary goal, I always say to people, what feels right for you? Are you somebody that likes to just sit in the power and allow that energy to flow through you? Or are you somebody that wants to stand up in the spotlight and demonstrate the evidence? There are no wrongs. There are only ways that you feel you want to express the energy that you are part of. So we're talking about different levels of consciousness during healing. And really, this is where we talk about the trance states. And later on, I will do a demonstration for you of what I mean by demonstrating the different levels. Because in healing and in trance, what in fact you are doing, you are sharing a portion of your mind with the spirit world. So you get to decide how much of your mind you want to share with the spirit world. And depending on your development as a person, then that will allow you to share more and more of your mind with the spirit world. There's a simple way that I try to explain this to help people to understand. Imagine your mind is a container of consciousness. So you have a container of consciousness. And on this container of consciousness, you have a tap at the top and you have a tap at the bottom. The tap at the top is always open and is open to the intelligence of the universe, the spirit world, the healing forces, the God force, call it what you want. That tap is always open and that energy is always presenting itself into your consciousness. But it can't go anywhere because your mind is 100% full of your consciousness. So what you do as a developing medium or as a healer and a trance healer, you slowly start to undo the tap at the bottom of the container of consciousness. And this starts to remove part of your consciousness, which then allows the empty space in that jar to increase, which gets filled by the energy from the spirit world. So you are in control with your development of how much of that tap at the bottom you can open up. Obviously, the more you open the tap at the bottom, the more your consciousness disappears, and it is then mixed and blended with the consciousness from the spirit world. Depending on what you were doing, depending on, and this is healing week, so we're going to focus on healing rather than mental mediumship. Depending on what healing you're doing, that will depend on how much consciousnness of your consciousness you release. So, for instance, if you are working, or take this, if you're working for an organization called the SNU as a healer, you have to work within the rules and regulations of that organization. And part of the rules and regulations are you must have a total awareness of the patient and where you are at all times. And if you're going to make contact, where your hands are. So in other words, you are restricted to how much of that consciousness you can, how much of your own consciousness you can release, because you have to keep a fair amount of your consciousness there to make sure that you are aware of what you're doing, of aware what's going on at all times. So if you were working as a spiritual healer, and I don't want to categorize people in percentages, but say 60% spirit world, 40% healer, maybe 70% if they're a really good healer, and 30% the healer. But either way, you have a fair amount of consciousness there, so you know what is going on throughout, because you are responsible. If you then, through your training and through your practice, if you are able to release more and more of your consciousness, then naturally more and more of the energy of the spirit world will come in. And at some point, you will start to lose your consciousness of what's happening around you. And people call that the trance states. All of a sudden you go into what's called a trance state, where you have allowed so much of the intelligence of the spirit world to flow through you, you don't really have much of an awareness of what's going on. And at that stage, you are probably sharing 95% of your mind with the spirit world, or 98% of your mind with the spirit world, and maybe only 2 or 3% of your mind is present. But what I've noticed in my experience, no matter how good a trance medium is, and throughout my trance mediumship, part of the trance medium is always in that pot. That's, even though you're in a deep trance state, and if you're doing trance speaking or trance healing, maybe you have no awareness of what's going on, part of you is still in that pot, okay? And it's strange, and I had this experience when I first became a tutor at the Arthur Findlay College, and I had to do my first trance speaking demonstration. Well, I can tell you, I was so nervous. Okay, I was so nervous. But nevertheless, I went into a very deep altered state, went into a trance state, and the energy that I call Michael, I call the energy Michael because it's a good reference. Michael was speaking to the audience, and he was inviting questions. And someone, and I had no idea of what was going on. I had no idea of any of the questions. But somebody asked Michael a question that Andrej felt uncomfortable with. Now remember, I'm in a deep trance state. I have no idea what's going on. But the moment that question was answered, I came back from 99% out of it to about 50% out of it. I came back, and Michael said to me, "How do you want me to answer that?" Wow, Anyway, I said, and because I wasn't ready for that to be known about me, I said, "Don't answer it." And I went back again, and Michael carried on. What happened later on, about 6 months later, another trance demonstration, same question again, deep altered state, no idea what was going on. I started to come back a little bit, but this time I said, "Michael, speak your truth," which he did. So I've learned, again, what I said at the very beginning, I've learned from my experiences the part of the medium is always involved at some level. And it's almost like everybody who works in this field creates subconscious parameters. And that's the only way I can describe it. You create a subconscious parameter that you are comfortable working with. And if anything starts to approach those parameters, when Michael was asked that question, then you automatically start to come back. So again, I've learned all these things through experience. Now, I can only share with you what happens to me. Okay, that's really, and that's, you know, as I said at the beginning, we are all individual. This is what happens with me. I've also learned in my experience that even in the deep trance state, sometimes you can have a knowing of what is happening. So if the medium, trance medium, has such a good control over his trance state, he can actually, or she can actually be present, almost like observing without interfering. And that's the other thing I learned. It's all about non-interference, allowing a process to happen. Now, the easiest way for non-interference and allowing the process to happen is to remove your consciousness somewhere else and allow the spirit world to come in and express itself. Otherwise, if you are at the beginning of your journey, if you are present, you will have a tendency to want to get involved, to listen, and then you will start to come back. But once you've developed that ability and made that connection with the spirit world, and you can hold the trance state, then sometimes you may find yourself coming back, and it's the most surreal experience. And also, and observing the process. And again, nobody told me that would happen. I was told I would be in a sleep-like state, either trance healing or trance speaking. So anyway, I was doing a demonstration at the Alpha Affinity College, and I sat in the chair. I don't touch when I do healing. The patient was next to me. And then I went into the trance state. And after about a quarter of an hour, I found myself, this is the only way I can describe it, sitting with the audience, looking at myself on stage and listening to Michael speaking to the audience. And he was basically doing healing and inviting questions from the audience. And I'm in the audience sitting, watching myself. And it was so surreal. Okay, I laugh about this. I thought, well, can I ask myself a question? That's how real it was for me. It was like that. Wow, perhaps I can ask myself a question. So then the human mind comes in and start to think, well, okay, if I'm aware, I can't be in a deep trance state. But all of a sudden, Michael started speaking to the patient, and she said she had a curvature of the spine, and she said she could feel a hand in her spine and playing around with her vertebra. You know, so I've learned that sometimes I can be present without interfering. And that's the key point on your journey, is non-interference. So I've talked for about 25 minutes. And what I'd like to do perhaps is to demonstrate to you what I mean by sharing different percentages of my mind with the energy that I call Michael. And again, I love the interaction between humanity and the intelligence of the universe, or the spirit world, call it what you want. Again, I was doing a trance demonstration, same place, Arthur Findlay College. And I thought, great, I'll go on stage, sit down, go into the trance state, come back an hour later, job done, go to the bar, talk about it afterwards. So 2 minutes before I'm actually starting, Michael says, oh, we're going to do something different tonight. I said, no, you can't do that. He said, well, yeah, I want to do an experiment. I said, no, hang on, there's people out there. They're coming to a trance healing demonstration. He said, well, you ask your students to trust you. I said, yeah. Well, do you trust me then? I said, well, yeah, okay. Anyway, so what I'm going to try to do now is something I did live with a 2-minute warning. And it's basically an experiment of shifting through levels of consciousness, or me shifting through levels of consciousness. So it is Andrej speaking to you, telling you how much of my mind I am sharing with Michael. That's how it starts. And the experiment is I will share more and more and more of my mind until it gets to what I call a tipping point, where Michael will take over, Michael will talk to you, and then he will tell you how much of Andrej's mind he has got and where Andrej has gone in the process. Okay, so that's the experiment that I did a few years back. And it's a good way of showing you how by sharing a percentage of your mind, how the energy changes, how the effect it has on the medium. It would help. I'm just trying to think, do I need to change your view? So it would help if you would become aware of any energy changes. So theoretically, and again, this is theoretically, I would imagine that every time I share more of my mind with Michael, then I would imagine, theoretically, there should be an energy change. And hopefully some of you will be able to pick up that energy change. When Michael comes through, depending on how he feels, depending on what he wants to do, he will either talk to you, he will either do some healing, or he will do his own thing. I will have no awareness. At some point, I will have no awareness of what Michael is doing. So I'm just looking at, do I need to change the view? Yeah, I'll change the view. I don't know why. This is, again, I've learned to always go with what I'm being impressed to do. And I've changed the view from to gallery mode for some reason. So I know Michael, okay, so let's start. Because I know Michael is coming through because I'm starting to do things that I hadn't planned to do. And that's one way of perhaps, why am I changing the way I look at people? Why am I doing that? But I've learned not to question that. So at this moment in time, I would say it's 90% Andrej. There's 10% of Michael. I am totally aware of what is going on. I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm talking to you. I can feel some apprehension within me as the energy starts to shift. Now it is, I would say, 20% Michael, 80% Andrej. Still in full control, but I'm starting to slow down. That's the only way I can describe this, okay? I'm trying to use human terminology to try to express an energetic spiritual feeling. So my mind is slowing down. So now it's about 30% Michael, 35% Michael. I can certainly feel within me a big energy shift. It's affected me greatly. I would imagine some of you who are sensitive maybe could start to feel the changing energy roundabout now. Okay? And maybe afterwards, I will ask you. So I'm finding it difficult to speak. I'm just trying to stop Michael from coming in too close, because I need to be Andrej for a bit. Because when we speak, we don't think. It's an automatic process. Okay, it's automatically, we speak our thoughts, we just speak. I'm having to think of what I want to say. I mean, so in other words, I've lost that automatic process. I'm focusing very hard on my speech. I'm having to fight very hard to speak to you and stay in control as Andrej. It's 40% Michael, 60% Andrej. So before I lose control, at this level, I would guess this is what I would call my maximum attunement for healing. In other words, if I was working in the church, I'm approaching, pretty much this is where I want it to be and still keep focused on what's happening. Okay. We are approaching what I call the tipping point. And before that happens, I want to try to express to you how I feel. I feel a huge sense of excitement. I feel a huge sense of apprehension. I feel a huge sense of nervousness. And very, very soon, I know I am going to lose the Andrej calls me Michael. I have about 60% control. Andrej is the only way I can describe this is next to me, making sure everything is working. But really, he knows he has no control. He has no active control. But he's nervous. And I know sometimes he doesn't like me mentioning this, but he has a fear of failure. He is human. And it takes a while for him to remove himself more. Even now, he is stepped further away. He is still attached. So if I were to invite questions at this stage, Andrej would probably end up coming back to answer. So I'm just waiting for Andrej to carry on removing himself. And as he finally removes himself, it's like he has shrugged his shoulders and said, what will be, because he knows he cannot directly affect anything anymore. That is better for me. I can now express what I need to express in this experience. I can access different energetic frequencies depending on what is required. Let me energetically manifest what you would call a healing energy for a few minutes. So those of you who are energetically sensitive can perhaps feel what a healing energy is like. One moment. I am just changing the energy that manifests through me from what you call healing into expressing my thoughts with you. I can share with you now a little about where Andrej is. He is fishing. Now, Andrej has never fished in his life. But recently, in these demonstrations, when he goes somewhere, he likes to stand in a stream and look at the fish. And that's where he is now. He has no awareness of anything apart from the stream and fish. I have to be careful not to impinge my thoughts too much into Andrej, as that would bring him back. I want to access the healing frequency one more time. I am starting to have an awareness of Andrej's thoughts, which means he is starting to come back. I still have full control, but now I am becoming more and more aware of Andrej. Andrej is very quickly coming back. Okay, this is Andrej. I'm trying to describe how I feel. I feel disconnected. Okay, that's better. I'm starting to focus on the screen. Very quickly, 70% Andrej. I still feel quite spaced out would be the word, but really I'm starting to come back, 80% Andrej. Yeah, 90% Andrej. Okay. So I feel I'm fully back. Well, actually, I'm not fully back, but I'm the best I can be at this moment in time. I'm still trying to engage my mind with my words, get them in sync. Okay. Okay. So I wanted to actually demonstrate to you what I was talking about earlier, about sharing a portion of my mind with the spirit world or the healing intelligence, or call it what you want. And there's talking about it, which I did, but also hopefully by demonstrating it as well, some of you may have felt the different energies, the energy changes. And with healing, I find if I look back on different levels of consciousness, it tends to be what I call an automatic process. In other words, you will find your own level very quickly. You know, once you have developed a bit as a healing medium, you will quite easily be able to fit into your own level of consciousness with the intelligence, with the spirit world, depending on what you're doing. But I've learned, and I really do feel that you are in control at all times. When you are doing what I call spiritual healing, you are consciously in control. In other words, you are aware of what's happening at a conscious level. But also, I believe when you're doing trance healing, you are subconsciously in control. In other words, you will have created some parameters that you feel comfortable working with. And, you know, so you will have that control. So hopefully, some of you had an opportunity to feel different energies as I shared more of my mind with, I call the energy Michael, but you know, the name is unimportant. So we have 10-15 minutes left. So this is an opportunity for anyone to, ask any questions if you want, or two, to maybe talk about what you experienced in that demonstration. Was there a change of energy? You know, I mean, maybe you didn't feel a change in energy. So Danielle, I don't know who controls the questions. Would you want to do that, or shall I do it? How does it normally work?
Sure, I'll bring them forward. So we have Jennifer.
Thank you so much for what you do and what you did today. I have a strange question, and that is me feeling as a human being what it's like for someone else's spirit to come into another human being. How come this kind of wisdom can't come forward into a human being and be born into them? Why do they have to come and share and borrow your space?
Well, I think it is born into us. Okay, I think we are all part of everything. I don't think there's a separation. But I think we are conditioned from birth to believe that we are 100% human. And therefore we create this idea that we are 100% human and there's nothing else. Then we learn, hang on, there is something else. What do we call it? Let's call it the spirit world, okay? So well, let's call it Michael. It's my Michael. I call it Michael. Okay, there's me and there's Michael separate. And we go along on our journey for many, many years, having this separation. And then eventually we realize that there is no separation. The only separation has been in our human conditioning. And we say that the energy is separate from us. And you're totally right. It's not, I don't think it is, it's not separate from us. It's part of us. But the human side of us creates this idea of a separation. Does that help?
That's pretty brilliant. Thank you.
Good.
Yes, Ailes, come forward, please.
Thank you very much. That was amazing. I watched and felt all the changes through you. I could see the changes in your facial expression. And I don't know if Michael went through each photo in the gallery, because I felt the energy the whole time. But then all of a sudden I had a great big power surge of the healing energy. So I don't know if you were going from photo to photo, because I felt it, but then it was strong for a few minutes and then I felt it move off. But as Michael was coming in, I was really struggling to stay focused myself. It was almost like you were pulling me in. I really struggled to stay conscious. So the energy was just so strong. So thank you very much. That was just beautiful. So thank you.
Well, two things I'd like to share with you on that. One, that's how the energy should feel from a trance medium, okay? You should feel, wow, drawn into this energy. Secondly, to answer your question, this is Andrej speaking now. Again, it's difficult because Andrej and Michael were so interconnected. But at one point, I started to come back. And Michael said, no, I want to do some individual healing. And I went back again. So maybe, did Michael do 2 healings? Because the second healing was, he said he wanted to do a few individual healings. So maybe that's what it was. If he did 2 healings, I don't know. Well, yeah, of course he did. He said he was going to. Okay, thank you.
We have Renee coming forward. Could Renee go and unmute yourself, please? There we go.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you so very much. I was wondering if during a session when Michael was doing healing, you could invoke on another person through their soul, through their heart, through their mind to influence better relationship and help to heal that.
What the intelligence will do, or the healing intelligence will do, it will give the patient whatever they need to move forward.
Okay.
Now, that may be what you just said. If that, it may be to improve a relationship, or it may not be. And that's the other thing. We can't, I don't think, or we don't, I know we can't direct what happens.
Right.
But yes, so in other words, if someone, if their real problem is where they're stuck in a certain aspect that needs healing, if that's the one thing that they need to move forward, I know the intelligence will help in that avenue.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
Okay.
Wonderful.
We have Mark stepping forward, please.
That was quite astonishing. I've developing quite rapidly over the last few months, and I go not as deep as I've been tonight, but I'm going to go further and further. And yes, and I felt, well, I usually suffer with a dry mouth 24/7. And suddenly my dry mouth is no longer dry at the minute. So I have a feeling I might have been healed somewhat.
Right. Okay. Well, I have no recollection of what happened, so I can't confirm or not confirm, Mark. But I'm.
I just kept feeling I'm going through and through and through, and just drifting away.
Yeah.
Very nice.
No, thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Let's have Stan come forward, please.
Yeah, hello from me. Yeah, I definitely felt the different kind of energies when Michael was coming. Yeah, I felt it in my body as some kind of additional energy, and my mind got a bit absent, to put it that way. And then during the healing, there was definitely a surge of energy. Perhaps it's a different type of energy, so I did feel that. But I have a question with perhaps 2 aspects. Is it possible for a healer to to sense if, for instance, in a distant, absent healing session, if the healing has been successful for the patient. That's the part of the question, one part of the question, and the other part is is it possible that the healer would receive a feedback that the spirit doctor has done whatever they could, but then the patient should follow some, say, diet or do some exercises to make best use of the healing, some kind of recommendations.
Okay, so first of all, to answer that, okay, I'll make one thing clear, okay? If you are working on behalf of any organization, you will have to make sure you work within the rules and regulations of that organization, okay? And I know certain organizations you cannot recommend or diagnose, okay? But let's assume you're not working for any organization.
I'm doing it for my wife, for instance.
Yes, you're working on your own, okay. First of all, you are totally in control over your process. You have no control over the outcome. So in other words, you could have 10 people in the room. You could go into a trance healing state and you have full control of that energy. You manifest the healing energy through you. And those 10 people, it is up to them as individuals how they accept the energy or where they accept the energy. So that's the first thing. I think it's very much up to the individual. Secondly, yes, I do believe that there are people who can not so much diagnose, because I think people know what's wrong with them anyway, but certainly can have an ability. Well, the best one is Edgar Cayce. I don't know if anybody you read about Edgar Cayce, but he was known for channeling the Akashic records, among things. But one of the other things he did, he would diagnose patients and he would prescribe a cure. Now, he was so successful at prescribing a cure that doctors, okay, would take their patients to him to confirm what they thought their prescription, whether it was right or wrong. That's how good he was, Edgar Cayce. But to be honest, I haven't seen another Edgar Cayce. So to answer your question, yes, it is possible. But I think we have to go a long way before we can get it to be accurate. But if you have a feeling, if you're working with your wife and you go into the intelligence and you have a feeling that she should take something which would be right for her, then I would suggest you go with that feeling.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Stan.
Thank you. So we have about 5 minutes to go. So please, those questions, if we can do our best to keep them concise so we can get them answered, we appreciate that. So Boyd, come forward, please.
Hi, Andre.
Hi.
I've enjoyed this session. I think I saw the last one you did as well. The question I have is about, I went to a circle and the medium, even though it was meant to be trance, he was in a cabinet. I sort of struggled myself as to why he needed to be in the cabinet.
Okay. Again, we are all individual. We all have to do things which we feel work for us, okay? There are some people that feel they need a cabinet to work in. And there are some people who feel they don't need a cabinet to work in. I don't see the point of having a cabinet to work in. I see no reason why that needs to be in place. But I know how strong the human mind is. And if you have a belief, that you can only work in a cabinet, if you don't have that cabinet, you will struggle because your human mind will stop you from working until you understand you don't need the cabinet.
Yes, that's what I was thinking, actually. Yeah.
That's just
Okay. Thank you.
That's my experience. Thank you. Thanks, Boy.
Thank you.
Thank you, boy. Beth, please step forward, please.
Hi, Andrej. That was really interesting. Thank you for demonstrating that for us. My question is, what do you do consciously to reduce your consciousness? What process do you go through in your mind? Because it was interesting, Michael said that you were, while you were away, you were standing in a stream looking at fish. And I wonder if that's something that you do consciously to get yourself into that.
Yeah. Oh, nowadays it happens automatically. But what I teach basically the way to do it is to shift your awareness from point A to point B. Point A, if you're doing trance healing or trance speaking, point A is where you're with your patient or client. And I say to people, now I want to take you on a journey to take you away from point A to point B. And point B can be anywhere. It can be a great spiritual journey with your spirit guides, getting the answers to the universe, or it can be shopping in the supermarket, as long as you can remove your consciousness to point B. So initially, it's very much actively shifting your consciousness. And then as you learn to shift your consciousness, it becomes easier and easier and easier, and it just becomes automatic.
Okay, thank you. And when you're coming back, when your consciousness is coming back, you said that you felt disconnected as you were coming back when you started to get some consciousness back.
Yes.
And I'm interested to know, does it have a similar feeling to how you feel when you first wake up in the morning after a night's sleep? Is it a similar sort of feeling?
No, it's a feeling that I still have conscious thoughts, but I can't bring those into reality. I can't verbalize them. When I wake up in the morning for sleep, I either wake up or don't wake up.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, I just find that I can't connect. You know, I have a thought. Oh, I want to say something, but I can't actually say it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. So we have about 2 minutes left. So let's bring forward Shirley.
Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, Andrej. Thank you for that lovely demonstration. I'd just like to say that I felt when you was going into the spirit world, I just felt that it was like electric around my head, and I felt like I was being pulled towards you. But then I also felt very, very tired and warm, and I felt like somebody was working on my left arm for some reason. And when you started coming out of it, I felt warm, but very relaxed and calm. And now I feel like I could have a good sleep for about an hour. So thank you for that. I do suffer with anxiety, and that's really helped me. And it was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Shirley. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Shirley. And we have Sharon come forward, please.
You need to unmute yourself, Sharon.
Sharon, are you seeing the message to unmute? Not working for you there.
Right.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Andrej. Yes, very quickly, is like Shirley previously, this is my first time watching anything like this, so I'm a complete beginner. But like Shirley, just before you was going in, I just felt like someone was dancing on my head. It was tingling all over the top of my head, like static. It's the only thing I see, it's like static, and then a complete tingling down my left leg for no apparent reason, because I'm sitting quite comfortably in my lounge. And then it went away, and then it started going away. The more deeper you went in, the more it went away, and then there was nothing. When you was coming back, same sort of thing happened. There was a massive tingling on top of my, to the point where I'm thinking, you know, who's touching my head? You know, sort of gets itching, touching. It's okay now. But that was a weird experience, and I didn't know whether that's normal.
Well, normal to you, yes.
It must be normal to me. Yeah. But that was so odd, because it was just so obvious, you know, what happened. So but very relaxing in between. But it was the going in. It was going in before you actually said you were going to do it. That's when I felt it.
Yeah, I think the experiment Michael wanted to do was to allow you to see and feel the different changes in energies going in and coming back out. So that was the experiment. So I'm glad you felt that. Thank you, Sharon.
But, yeah, well, I thought I was just the odd one out, but Shirley just nailed it. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you, Sharon. So we are at time. Andrej, was there anything else you wanted to say before we do our final goodbyes here?
No, just briefly remember that I can remember I was sitting where you were sitting not so long ago. I'm looking at the Arthur Finney College, and I saw this medium. I thought, wow, I wish I was born like that. And it's not. It's just a bit of hard work. Okay, so if I can do it, you can do it. And thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you so much for those words and for the experience tonight and all the things that we each individually got to experience. I'm sure you all can join me in providing a smile or a wave to Andrej here for your way of showing gratitude in the ways that we are for this experience and being able to see all this. So thank you so much for your passion, your commitment to allowing us to experience in our own way. We're very grateful. And on behalf of all, I would like to say to Andrej, thank you very much for being here and for sharing with us. And for any of you who would like to see more or learn more, you're very welcome to follow Andrej. You may see him whether at Arthur Finney College. You can also visit his website. It's quite simple, but we'll give you a moment to write down his name if you need to, AndrejDjordjevitch.com. And there you will find the listings of all courses, both personal and with Arthur Finney College, that are available. I do hope you continue your journey. And once again, please send out that gratitude towards Andrej this evening for giving us this moment of his time. Thank you so much, Andrej, for being here.
Thank you all. See you soon.